Welcome back to the Mountain Witch Tarot channel. I am your host, Sarah, and today we are Disembodied Hands. Now, before we get started on today's video, please take a moment and hit the like button. It really helps my channel out, lets me know you enjoy this type of content. Our topic for today is one that I'm very fascinated by, very interested in. So you may have heard about this. What's going on right now with the Epstein files and the missing files? So Donald Trump is mentioned in, obviously he's mentioned a lot in the files, but there are a very specific few that implicated him directly involving the of a 13-year-old child. Those files have been removed from the DOJ website. All of them have been taken down. They took numerous documents off of the DOJ website to conceal this and to hide this story. Now, the interesting thing about this situation is that up until now, the news media hasn't been paying a whole lot of attention to the Epstein files. They've been kind of turning a blind eye. So there's obviously a lot going on here, a lot of, dynamics happening. But I think essentially when you drill down past all of the chatter and the fluff, what is really happening at this very moment is that a strategy that Trump's DOJ thought they had, which was to quietly remove these particular documents that incriminate Donald Trump, has blown up in their face because I don't think they expected the media to pick this story up. I don't think they expected this much attention to be kind of trained on this particular incident because up until now, the media has been pretty quiet and pretty compliant with the regime. I have a theory that we're going to explore today that this is the pivotal moment that changes everything. I think that these particular documents that were removed will be the ones to take Donald Trump down. I feel very strongly about this. I think the writing is on the wall if you look at the scenario and you look at all the facts involved. So we're going to do a Lenormand reading on it today and see what we can get in regard to how does this play out? Is this backfiring in Trump's face in real time? Is this the moment that leads to the ultimate downfall? Without further ado, let's go ahead and lay out our grand tableau. Our main question that we're starting with here, the first thing we're looking for is, does this removal of these particular records bring more awareness to the situation and backfire on Trump? And I think that the tableau is perfectly illustrating that absolutely that is the case. We're starting off up here at the top with the medal and the letter, the birds and the handshake. And we're looking at these in twos this time because I think they'll make more sense once you see where I'm going with this. The dog and the clouds and the cross and the sickbed. So looking at the corners to begin with, I feel like we have the energy of the Epstein files and the official release, the official website, the DOJ website, and then with the birds and the handshake, we have this energy of there's a clear and obvious deal being made. So there's something going on behind the scenes, some type of obfuscation, some type of backdoor deal kind of energy up there. Then down here, the confusion, and I feel like with the dog, that's a confusion being carried into the public. And then down here with the cross and the sickbed, this is quite obviously a reference to the energy of the files themselves. With the cross and the sickbed, we're looking at this burdensome sickness in our society that's being exposed. So I think in the four corners, what the tableau is really telling us here is that this deal that was struck to try to remove and fly under the radar with this specific set of files that went missing, it was quite obviously a strategy Okay, this was a strategy that they discussed, that they, probably just assumed that they could just take them down. And because there's so many, nobody would notice and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And, oh, people forget and blah, blah, blah. They just assume that American people can be manipulated into forgetting things because we're so used to that 24-hour news cycle that things can just be swept under the rug. And also, it gives them plausible deniability. They can just say, oh, those files weren't there. I would say realistically, behind the scenes, they're absolutely panicking over the fact that those particular files were found and drew so much attention. I would say that they didn't anticipate that. Their plan all along with this release, which is a whole other topic in and of itself, has been a catastrophe. They have just made so many mistakes that it is hilarious, absolutely laughable. And the thing about it is, a lot of people ask, like, well, why would they ever release it in the first place? Why would they be willing to do these things if they were trying to hide something? Well, they got backed into a corner. This actually came out in a reading quite some time ago, and I told you all they were backed into a corner and didn't have a choice. But they thought that if they just went ahead and released it and then denied everything, that they could deny their way out of everything. Marjorie Taylor Greene confirmed a couple of weeks ago what we saw in the cards a couple of months ago, which was that Donald Trump got backed into a corner, had to release the files. I think there was supposed to be more strategy to the specific set that they released. Mistakes were made. The redactions were a mess. They were obviously not ready to release those files. Someone obviously called their bluff and put them in a position to where they made copious mistakes. So the great thing about the universe is that when you do horrible things, a lot of times the universe will out you for it. And that is 100% what I see happening here, is that they thought they had a plan. They thought they could wiggle their way out of this like they have everything else. Realistically, they got caught up in basically a karmic trap. Because whatever you put out into the universe comes right back to you just like a boomerang. So this deal that they thought they had, this plan, this strategy, absolutely is going to backfire in the biggest way possible. We have the clouds here to illustrate confusion and delusion and all of those things. And then ending on this burdensome sickness, very strong energy here of this backfiring. I would also argue that considering that we are starting with the metal and the letter, I think that is our first big indicator that this gains momentum and recognition in a way that the rest of the files haven't yet, to pick up, especially in mainstream media. And if you look right underneath it, what do we have underneath it? The card for recognition. The moon card is the card of recognition. And this is the flow of that recognition flowing into the public. We have another travel card here with the ship moving slow progress into the public eye. Now let's hop around a little bit and get to some different messages. In the center, for example, and this is a really strong message that we have in the center, and I think we have a lot of messages coming in from different channels through the reading here. We have the heart, the safe card, which is our Epstein files card. We have the child card, and we have the whip card. Now, there are, like I said, several energies here. This is obviously these two together. This is something that is of great importance to this administration. And what's right next to it, the Epstein files. This is something that they care a lot about. Tremendously important. And it's very important that they try to block it, try to protect it. But they keep coming up on these new challenges just when they think that they have evaded this situation. The whip and the child card here comes up, and that energy is people continuously pushing for these files. I think that along the way, the regime has probably been very surprised at how aggressive society has been about these files and how people haven't given up yet. People haven't, no matter what type of distraction Donald Trump has created. I mean, look what he's done with ICE. Look what he's done with Venezuela and Iran and like all of these other things that are going on. Nothing has been a solid distraction from the files, no matter what he did. The people have been demanding consistently that these files be released. So big emotions tied to the files here and constant problems, new problems. They can't escape from it. Also feel like there is a little message here regarding the literal child card. You all know, if you've been watching me for a while, that when I do these Epstein readings, the child card often comes through with a literal message. And I get the energy of all of this, like with the lily and the government and stuff. This is just another message to me, albeit like a small message. It almost feels like the memories of these children are haunting Donald Trump. Like, no matter where he runs, he can't escape these terrible things. I think that they're constantly in his mind and on his mind. And up here we have with the mice card so much anxiety and so much danger with the scythe card. And it feels to me like there is an alternative message here of him being so overwhelmed with what he did. And he can't get away from it. It's following him into his old age. It's followed him into government. It's going to follow him all the way to the end. This is not something he's ever going to get away from. And when we're talking specifically about the documents that were deleted, those really hold a tremendous amount of power in this reading and in the public eye, because he thought he had a plan to evade the situation, and it's backfiring and it's becoming worse. Maybe it wouldn't have drawn so much attention, but the fact that they took those specific files down has created an explosion of interest, because before, the media wasn't really talking that much about the Epstein files. Now, independent media, people like Aaron Parnas and Harry Sisson and, David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, they've been talking about it, but legacy media has done a fantastic job for Trump of ignoring the existence of these files. They've completely just disregarded the horrible things that we see in the Epstein files every time we go and look through them. And now it's so funny how we have this situation exploding in the mainstream media. So let's talk about up here with the female significator, which is generally the Trump administration. But my intentions when I went into laying out this tableau is that it would be more focused on Pam Bondi. And up at the top with that card, we have a message about intentions and plans quickly unraveling. Because here we have, the official documentation, we have the ship card, it's moving into the public eye, creating stress, creating destruction, wreaking havoc, creating a dangerous situation that's bringing a lot of anxious talk and gossip and news spreading and, lots of voices chiming in. The whole country, the whole world is talking about the Epstein files and Donald Trump and all of the people who are affiliated with it. And it's even worse overseas for the Trump administration because, they're holding people accountable in very real ways. And it's kind of pointing a big spotlight at the United States like, hey, why aren't you holding anyone accountable? We have all these other countries who are arresting people and dethroning people, and you all ain't doing nothing, basically. So big energy of this situation that they thought they had worked out. They really thought they had a solid plan, solid strategy, completely unravels, falls apart, and leaves them with nothing but anxiety, stress, and more damage. So let's take a look at the second line where we actually have the file showing up. And I think this is one of the most hopeful lines in the tableau, which is that we see with like the fish and moon, there's this big emotional situation here and blockages, and then we have the Epstein files. And when we're looking at, all the way to the end, we end up with the bouquet and the clover. Now, when I was first looking over this, I was like, uh-oh, why has he got the bouquet and clover over his head? Well, because I think the energy runs more so line by line to answer all of my questions and inquiries about this situation. And it's not so much about him getting lucky and having a good outcome for himself. It's more about the American people getting a good outcome, because here we kind of see an illustration in the cards where the files have been repeatedly blocked. They've been blocked over and over, and they're coming out in kind of waves, and there's like this flow of information being released. And so we're all kind of riding this emotional roller coaster here regarding the files. But what really happens with this, seeing the lightning card come up here, what we're really going to see by the end of this, when we're speaking specifically about the documents that they removed, is this abrupt turnaround in the situation. So abruptly, things shift from Donald Trump being able to block these things over and over and run away from these things. And it's like, bam, all of a sudden we've hit the point of no return for the Trump regime and for Trump himself, because now there's so much attention on these missing files coming from legacy media that it's totally undeniable, first of all. Second of all, it's going to create so much tension. People are going to have to start to do something. They're going to have to start to dish out some type of accountability. And I think realistically, when we're looking at this situation, because I know a lot of people always say like, oh, Trump does whatever he wants and he gets away with it. Nobody holds him accountable. We have to think accountability is going to look different for everybody, especially him, because he, being such a manipulative, dirty, underhanded monster, he has always been able to finagle situations into his favor. What accountability is going to look like for him, it's not, and I tell you this all the time, it's not like the military going in there and dragging him out by his ears. That's not what it realistically looks like. What it realistically looks like is this situation discrediting him to the point of just sheer public outrage from every direction. Once everybody has turned on him, and we're very close to that point. I mean, and if you don't believe that, just look at the numbers for the No Kings protests, and that was months ago. And they're saying that the one in March is supposed to be far bigger. Look at how people are reacting across the country. There are more people against him than for him at this point. MAGA likes to think that they are the majority. They like to think that everybody thinks the way that they do, but realistically, they are just a super loud minority. When everybody has turned against him and everybody gets to the point where, when he comes on press conference or something, and the only questions he gets and the only attention he gets is focused on this situation, he's done. That's accountability for him. Now, he may have immunity while he's in office, but he can't stay in office forever, no matter how hard he tries. And the fact that, he's got all this great health care and they're doing all this stuff to prop him up and shooting him full of go-go juice so that he can go scream at the teleprompter and spit tonsil stones all over the floor of Congress for 2 hours at a time. Maybe, just maybe, he leaves office and no longer has all this immunity and goes straight to prison. Maybe, and just maybe, this is in the cards, come November in the midterms, both the House and the Senate flip, and he gets impeached. He gets convicted, he gets removed, and then he gets charged. There is a very real way for this to play out. And if you look at this right here, this little circle here, this block of energy with the lily, the child, and this is very obviously a reference to Congress. When I get these cards together, this is not just the White House. This is another branch of government here. And I'm really getting a strong feeling that all this doubt that's created right now in this moment leads to a new House, a new Senate. See, up here with the child card, we even have a reference to newness. There's an end to what they have right now. And this ending leads to a very heavy, powerful burden for Trump and his regime. This is a big ending that I feel like I get a lot of energy based on the fate line here and this bottom line, that we're talking about an ending that changes society forever. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We'll talk about the fate line in a minute. But this kind of ties in here, and we'll come back to this line in just a second. But I feel like this is so big. This is so big. This sickness that's going to end is enormous. It's going to change society. And things like that take time. They don't happen overnight. But I definitely feel like huge possibility here that this is referencing the House and the Senate flipping to Democrat control, and in which case he's done. And it's interesting, too, that over here he's looking away. He's focused right now. The reason he's in this position at the end of the row, looking outside of the tableau, is because he keeps telling himself, as long as I stop the election, as long as there's no midterm, as long as I don't get impeached, I can make all this go away. See how he's got his back to all of this, because he's one-track mind, focused on the future, looking forward down the road at the midterms and how to keep control in a supermajority. And as long as that doesn't happen, he's cooked. Now let's go back up here to the third line, because we kind of sort of skipped it following this energy trail that wraps around the tableau here. The Fox, Stars, Lily, Child, Whip, Key. Very interesting message right here. We'll get to that in just a second. With the Fox and Stars, here's a reference to a really smart strategy, a clever plan. Now, I'm not saying this is his plan. I'm not saying it's anybody else's plan. We're just going to go by the cards, and then I'll tell you where I think these energies fit. So we've got this clever strategy, and then with the Lily and Child, we've got kind of a new beginning, new things on the horizon. Stuff like this takes a lot of time, so I feel like the Lily card is definitely talking about slow progress here. The Whip and Key, a turning point. Okay, and then we know that the Stork is transformation. What is the key pointing to? Transformation. So this line is a lot about basically like this repetitive, stressful situation. And if you start to think about this from Trump's point of view of him fending off this stressful situation that's been going on for such a long time, this is all kind of sneaking up behind him. Every bit of this plan, I think, goes both ways. His plan and the plan for the future. We are seeing a new strategy come up behind him where all of this comes out, all of this is revealed, and the key is pointing to transformation. That is when. That is the only when, even. That's when we see the end of this whole mess with Donald Trump. The key is transformation. So let me try to rephrase this in case that wasn't clear. Something new has to happen. All of this has to play out a certain way for maximum impact, for this maximum impact right here, because I believe that that's what these two cards are. Well, actually, it's all four of them. And really, if you look at the cards leading up to it, I feel like this is an intensely strong message at the bottom of the tableau, but it has to play out a certain way. You've got to go through the trials and tribulations. You've got to go through the slow movement of a new situation coming about. And what is that new situation tied to? New government situation. So this slow progress, this long-term situation that we've been stuck in is going to change. It's going to shift. He's not going to anticipate this shift. And when he is least expecting it, the solution, the transformation happens, and it just wipes out all of this nightmare that we've been dealing with. Because like I've always told you all, the Epstein files is the one thing that has the momentum and the strength and the potency to take down the Trump administration. These people who are involved in this sickness, this child sickness with the Epstein files, they have to go. They have to be removed from government. And the only way we can do that is for everybody to be paying attention and refusing to back down off of this topic. And so I think it's a long road. I think we are in a period of time where things might seem to even slow down. You know, here with the stars and the lily, kind of feel like we may go into a period of time where it seems like things don't matter and that the Epstein files have lost their momentum. They're never going to lose their momentum. They're going to ebb and flow like anything else. But when we're talking about these specific files that the DOJ removed, these are the ones that's going to lead to his ultimate downfall. And it's right here in the cards. It's right here. But this change has to come first. So now with the very bottom line here, I think we've pretty much covered it. But just to kind of recap a little bit, we're basically looking at, we'll say, a journey of confusion and turmoil and all of this stuff going on in government, leading to this profound change that's here at the ending. And it's right underneath him. It's creeping up on him. He doesn't even see it coming. I think in some ways he is oblivious to the fact that this is going to be what gets him in the end. But, you know, up here with the administration, despite the fact that they're on top of this situation and taking charge, they are very much failing. And they are at a point where I think they don't know how they're going to proceed with any of this. It's not as easy as it once was to cover things up. So, you know, every time we see like Pam Bondi on TV screeching about the dowel, I think realistically what we're seeing is a woman who is shaking in her boots, trying to uphold what Trump taught her, that strongman appearance. Never back down. Never admit you were wrong. Just keep plowing forward and claiming a victory, and people will believe it. But people are tired of that. And people aren't buying that anymore. Even his loyalists are deconstructing. So they've lost so much support. I don't think that anybody wants to hear their crap anymore. Anyway, I'll stop editorializing here. Let's talk about the fate line, because I think the fate line is really important in this tableau. Crossroads and ring. This is a choice concerning commitments. The ring and tree, we're looking at long-term stability. The tree and bear, this is the emotional energy of strength, stability, and protectiveness. Now, I looked at this line for a long time and I thought about all the different things that, you know, it could apply to, but how does it apply specifically to our questions for this tableau? Well, I think one thing that's coming through very strong to me is, you know, how I mentioned that this whole thing would change society forever, and that this is like such a profound ending, such a big, strong, long-lasting ending to this situation. I think it's kind of coming through a little bit on the bottom as well. And I feel like the protection has a lot to do with, we need to do a better job as a country and as the world to protect kids and to protect people who aren't able to protect themselves. There needs to be more protection in the world for vulnerable people. I think that's one change that we're going to see come from this whole situation. I think that that's in the very long run. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years from now, we are seeing a massive amount of bills go through the House and Senate that strengthen and tighten protection for kids and young people and, you know, marginalized people and just anyone who may be in danger by entities like this guy. You know, I think that this will have such a great effect that it will reach pretty far into the future where we see a lot of laws really tighten down on this type of stuff, which is excellent. But I definitely feel like there is a reference to long-term, basically well-being, and the people that we allow to take control of situations, the people we allow in places of power, maybe even, I'm thinking like vetting people differently. I think, gosh, this is going to be such a big change. It's going to be so big and historic and, global, that I think the possibilities are endless here with how the world changes because of this case. I don't think that we've ever seen anything quite like it. And we may never in our lifetime see anything like it again, and like I've always told you, I think that there's going to be stuff released regarding Epstein's ring. We'll just condense it down and just say Epstein's ring. We're going to see this follow Trump into the grave. There's going to be more stuff coming out and being talked about even once he is off this plane of existence. Like, this is such a big thing. And it goes back so far into history, and it has roots in so many different places. Like, it's, a global upheaval. This thing has to change kind of energy. Kind of feeling like with the tree and the ring, like that's kind of what that's talking about. So there's just so much going on down here. And if we start connecting it to other cards, it becomes even bigger and more profound. But I think you all get the point. So I'll stop talking about all of the various messages. This is a very strong tableau. I haven't had a tableau in quite some time that came through with this many strong, solid messages. And usually when they do that, it's because things are no longer in flux and things are set in stone. So I feel very confident in, the messages coming through here. Yes, Trump did make a massive mistake when he had the DOJ remove those files. Yes, it will backfire. And yes, he will absolutely 100% face accountability. And even more so than that, this will change the world. This will change society. There's so much more I could say about this. You all feel free to chime in the comments and let me know your take on it, what you see in the cards. I always love reading your comments and thoughts on the things that you pick up on. So be sure to share that and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. It really helps my channel out and it lets me know that you enjoy this type of content. I'll be back very soon with another video. It's almost time to do another weekly forecast for Donald Trump, so we'll be doing that pretty soon. In the meantime, you all have a great rest of your week and a great weekend, and I will see you later.